Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 11th part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 11, Showcase. Watching Minoru get shot was indeed fun to watch. Especially when he was sent flying back from the impact. It hadn't even been a day but everyone knew the little Greek was a pervert, so it was so satisfying for the girls to watch him get hit by a rubber bullet. Just a shame he was wearing body armor at the time. Once Minoru had recovered from being shot, Kana told them to get back into their uniforms, pick up their syllabus from the classroom, and dismissed them for the day. But she did ask Izumi to stay back for a bit. "Don't worry, you're not in trouble," Kana said after everyone else had gone. "Just thought that you wouldn't want personal information revealed to the rest of the class." Is this about my quirk's late appearance?" Izumi asked nervously. Kana nodded, giving her a friendly smile. "Hey, it's okay. Not everyone's quirk manifests when they're young. I was a late bloomer as well." Izumi stared at her with wide eyes. "Why, you were a late bloomer?" she asked, quite surprised that Lady Nagant was a late bloomer. "Guess the HPSC wanted to keep that under wraps. Need to add that to Lady Nagant's entry." Kana nodded. "Yep. Which means I have a slight idea of what you've been through. So, your quirk. I'm guessing you weren't using your full power for that throw?" Izumi nodded. "I can only handle 5% of my power, it hurts if I use more." "I see. And I guess that you haven't had quirk counseling since your quirk came in?" Kana asked, getting a nod from Izumi. "I see. Well, not to worry, UA has several teachers who have quirk counseling licenses, so they can help you. I believe Blossom has agreed to help tutor you." "Blossom?" Well, that was convenient. Now she could ask the women what her quirk was, because damn it, she wasn't going to let an opportunity like this pass by. Seriously, how the hell did she now know who All Might's homeroom teacher was? Once her first quirk counseling session had been arranged, Izumi headed back to the changing room and got back into her school uniform. Changing alone since everyone else had already finished. Whilst everyone headed back to the dorm, Izumi headed elsewhere, towards the guidance counselor's office. The meeting with Hound Dog/Rio went better than expected. Despite looking scary, he was actually very kind. Listening to what she wanted to say before speaking and giving her some advice. He was like Isa in a way, caring about his patients and helping them with their problems. Her first session with him was just a get to know each other session, with Izumi also giving him a rundown of her problems. Rio already knew most of them due to Isa passing his notes on her to UA once she was accepted to the school, so Rio could provide the best care he could, so all she needed to do was update it with what she found out after her last session with Isa, plus a few more Durandal recommended to talk about for good measure. "Well, I'm glad that you're seeking help," Rio said, trying his best to maintain his temper. That's to Isa's notes, he had a clear idea of the hell Izumi's life had been. It frustrated him how badly her teachers were treating her. They were teachers for fuck's sake. They're supposed to be looking after their students, not singling one of their students out for being quirkless. He took a few deep breaths before continuing. The last thing this girl needed was to see him angry, even if his anger wasn't directed at her now. "Whilst you have made decent progress, I recommend for our next few sessions we focus on the new problems you've identified, especially your newfound fear of heights and falling." Izumi nodded. Out of all of her problems, that was one she needed help with the most. Freezing up as she did during the entrance exam could be disastrous. "I'm sorry for not noticing it sooner." "There's nothing to apologize for," Rio said calmly. "Fears are not something we instinctively know. Most people don't know they're scared of something until they see it for the first time, or develop one after a traumatic experience. Some people even talk themselves into fearing something. It's fine, I have a few ideas as to how I can help you overcome that fear, but it'll take a while to set them up. But I'm sure the staff at UA will be able to help you nonetheless." "Thank you," Izumi said with a smile. She was thankful that she was able to find someone else to help her. Isa's death hit her hard, so it was good that she was receiving help again. "No problem," Rio said. "Now, unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about, I suggest we call it a day. But my door is always open, so if you ever need to talk to me outside of our scheduled sessions, don't hesitate to ask." I will, Izumi said as she stood up. I'll talk to you later then, she said before she and Durandal left Rio's office and headed back to the dorm. Well, that worked out well, Durandal remarked. It's a good thing UA has a guidance counselor, being a hero is a stressful job after all. And after Paxton showed up, well, a lot more focus has been put onto the mental health of the world's heroes. Izumi nodded. Yeah. UA is such a breath of fresh air. Eldora was so stuffy, and whilst Nabu was better, its guidance counselor wasn't helpful. Agreed. Moron was completely uninterested in you. Durandal said. Well, UA is at least accommodating you, and your classmates are nice. They haven't said anything bad about you yet, save for Minoru. Izumi nodded. One did feel a lot better than all her previous classes. They didn't immediately turn on her, in fact, they all seemed to like her, even if one of them was being a bit insensitive about it. Plus she had 3 confirmed friends there, and 2 more seemed interested in getting to know her better. Friends. Even though she's had 2 for almost a year, she was still struggling to get used to having them. Friends, people who cared about her who weren't family. She used to think that Katsuki was her friend, but who was she kidding? Friends don't go about beating friends and calling them useless or Deku, or tell them to dash. No, she didn't want to think of that or him. She had friends now, real friends who cared about her. Not whatever the hell Katsuki was. They made their way back to the 1A dorm, only to be met by the rest of the class, and Mei, the moment she walked in. Izumi. Achiko said as she, Hitoshi and Nito rushed over to her, followed by the rest of the class. How'd your meeting with Hound Dog go? Izumi said, sounding confused. How did you know that? Oh, sorry about that, Achiko said. You did say you wanted to talk to him yesterday, so I just assumed you spoke to him. Sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. Izumi let out a relieved sigh. We didn't think you would be asked to stay behind. Why was that? Hitoshi asked. Oh, Kana just wanted to schedule some quirk counseling, Izumi said, followed up by Nito, Hitoshi and Achiko making a silent O since they all knew that she only recently got it. The others weren't so calm about it. Quirk counseling? Tenya asked. But, you managed to get first in the entrance exam and showed great control with your quirk. Actually, my control was down to luck, Izumi said. I'm a late bloomer, a very late bloomer. Day of the exam late, she said nervously. They were going to find out she was a late bloomer at some point. Might as well get it over and done with quickly. The class went silent, deathly silent. Why, you went into the exam with a quirk you only just had access to? Hanta exclaimed in shock. Holy shit, Denki exclaimed. That means you had almost no experience with using it, Tenya said as he hung his head. No wonder you were nervous. You went into the exam with a quirk you barely had control over. And since you only had access to it on the day, you would have been effectively quirkless for most of your life. My actions towards you could be coincide bullying. Once again I must apologize for my actions. Wait, so when you broke yourself when fighting the 0-pointer, Kyoka said. Was me going overboard with my quirk? Izumi continued. I can only use a small percentage of my power, about 5%. Any more and it hurts. Too much and I harm myself. I was only using around 1% during the exam, with some help from Durandal. More silence. Several students looked shocked, with a few jaws dropping. Even Mei looked shocked by the news. God's Momo gasped, hands covering her horrified face. You went into the exam with a quirk you've never used before, Mina said, sounding shocked. Well, I'm glad UA realized this and is seeking to help you, Ijiro said. It would be unmanly if they didn't provide you with all the help you need. Spending that much time thinking you did have a quirk, you've got a lot to catch up on. Don't be afraid to ask us for any help, Hanta said. Your quirk may be different from ours, but I'm sure we can provide some pointers. Don't worry, Izumi. We're here for you, Nito said, putting a hand on Izumi's shoulder. Izumi smiled slightly. She had expected her classmates to be surprised by the news, but she wasn't expecting them to be this considerate of her. Her friends, yes, but not her classmates. Even the ones at Nabu Middle School kept their distance from her. With tears in her eyes, she leapt forwards and brought Nito, Hitoshi and Achiko into a hug. Thank you, she cried, the Midoriya waterworks in full effect. Well, that kind of lowered the mood a bit, Toru said. We need to do something to lighten it after that. I know, why don't we have a competition to see who's got the best room? That sounds like a great idea. Mina agreed with a smile. Wah! Izumi said, sounding surprised, isn't it a bit too early to be doing something like that? We've only known each other for a day. Then we can use this as an opportunity to get to know each other better. Mina said with a smile, we can learn a lot about each other from how our rooms are laid out. Well, I'm not against people having a look in my room, Denki said, plus it sounds fun. Most of the class sounded to be on board the whole show your room competition idea, with only a few against it. And so began the first one, a room showcase, starting with the boys' side with Tenya's room. That is a lot of books, Rikito remarked as they looked at the several bookshelves worth of books in his model student room, which was very neat and tidy, and had a lot of books in it. Why do you have so many glasses? Achiko asked, pointing at the several shelves of glasses he had. Well, with all the training we will be doing I will no doubt break them, Tenya replied, so it's always a good idea to have plenty of spares. Sounds reasonable, Denki remarked, still, why all the books? A model student should have plenty of books covering all manner of topics that may be covered. Denki sighed, of course. Fumicage's room was next, and he was rather reluctant to let everyone look inside his dark fortress of solitude. In the end, the girls won and looked inside, finding his room to be very dark with purple lights. My fortress of darkness has been exposed to the light, Fumicage said, sounding embarrassed. Hey, don't worry about it, Fumi, Dark Shadow said. I still like it. It's nice and dark, she said, sending a shiver down everyone's spine. Hitoshi's room was next, and it was dash. Cats? What? Hitoshi said calmly, standing in the middle of his room full of cat-themed stuff, from posters, status, bedding etc. I like cats. I see, Hanta said looking confused, I just didn't think you were the kind of guy who would like cute stuff like this. I think it's adorable. Mina said with a smile. Yui said with a nod. I'm just shocked you don't have any wild Pussycats posters, Minoru remarked. Hitoshi looked at the small boy with an unimpressed look. I like cats, not people whose hero names are cat breeds, he said, really grateful that his poster of Succubus is on the back of his door. What, he's a teenager as well. He may look tired most of the time, but even he is affected by hormones. Plus he said nothing about cat print swimsuits / underwear / costumes, or in Succubus' case, people with cat mutation quirks. Nito's room was next, which looked more like a study, an old-fashioned study. Wow, this looks refined, Momo remarked as they had a look around. Well, since I will be researching quirks a lot, I need a place where I can study them in peace, Nito said that, and I modeled it after my grandfather's old study. Well, your grandfather has good tastes, Momo said. This room feels rather quaint. Thank you, I'm glad you like it. Ijiro's room was next, and it was manly. Well, this is nice, Izumi remarked, not really knowing what to say about the room, apart from the obvious punching bag. Yep, that's Ijiro for ya, Mina said with a smile. What's with all the hair care products? Himiko asked. Oh, that's for my hair, Ijiro replied. I need to so I can dye my hair. It's not naturally red, sadly. Himiko frowned. You're not a natural redhead? Fuck. She said, sounding disappointed. Oh well, at least there's still Izumi and Achiko. Gods, those two are adorable. Inasa's room was next, and it was not what any of them were expecting. It was normal for the most part, but there were several posters of heroes from around the world on the walls. Blitz, Vesuvius, Mason, and a few others. Izumi noticed that they all had one thing in common: they all controlled natural elements, thunder, lava, water, and stone, among other things. Ha, element-themed heroes, Kyoka remarked. Guess it fits in with your natural element theme since you can control wind. Yeah. Inasa said proudly. They're some of the most hot-blooded heroes out there. I love them. Well, I wasn't expecting to find another Blitz fan, Denki remarked. You're a fan of Blitz as well. Inasa asked. Oh, I'm more than a fan, Denki said with a smile. I'm actually related to him. You're what? Several students gasped at the bombshell Denki just dropped on them. Izumi had to force herself to not bombard him with questions concerning his relation to the man. Blitz did work with All Might after all. Yeah. But I'm not closely related to him, Denki said. My grandfather on my mother's side is the brother of Blitz's father. They're close, so the two sides of the family keep in regular contact. Ha! Didn't see that coming, Rikido said, and I thought Tenya was the only one here related to a pro hero. As they were leaving Inasa's room, they couldn't help but notice Minoru poking his head out of his room. Hey ladies! What to have a look in my room? The girls all leaned back in disgust, not really wanting to indulge the pervert at all. No was the response all the girls, plus Durandal, gave him before they walked off to the next room, followed by Hante shoving him inside and taping the door shut. Figured you girls wouldn't want him poking around your rooms, he said with a smile. Why thank you, Hanta, Momo replied with a smile of her own. Koji's room was next, and it was cute, with several animal plushies on the bed and dash. Oh, you have a bunny, Toru cooed as the girls melted at the sight of the very cute bunny sitting on the bed. Yui said with a smile. I thought we weren't allowed to have pets. Denki asked. Koji looked a bit embarrassed before he signed she's my emotional support animal, which Izumi relayed to the others. Ah, that's so cute, Nina said as she and the other girls started to fawn over his pet bunny. Well, at least his emotional support animal is fluffy, Durandal remarked. It took some doing, but they managed to drag the girls out of the room and away from the fluffy bunny. They then went on to the next room, Hanta's room, which had a very nice East Asian style to it. Wow, this is very impressive, Momo remarked as they had a look around. I especially like the carpet. Thank you, Hanta said with a smile. I had a hand in designing it actually. My dad knows someone who makes custom carpets like this one, so I was able to get it at a discount. You may need to get me in contact with them because I like the handiwork on this. Why do you have a katana? Kyoka asked. Oh, that's not a katana, it's a wakizashi, Hanta corrected. It's less than 60 centimeters, so it's a wakizashi. Katanas are longer than 60 centimeters, he said before noticing everyone was looking at him. I know a few things about swords as well. So this is what it's like on the other end, Izumi thought. Denki's room was next, and it had a funky feel to it, with several items that were funky. He also had a statue of Blitz. For some reason I was expecting something else, Kyoka remarked before she looked at the bed. Oh, you have a Pikachu plush, she cooed. Yeah, I got it last year from my second cousin, Harold Blitzen, Denki said, sounding rather embarrassed. He likes sending me electric-themed stuff. Like electric Pokemon and his father's merch. Izumi was visibly vibrating at the news, still holding herself back from bombarding Denki with questions. Harold Blitzen, hero named Blitzkrieg, aka Blitz's son, and currently a first year at Millennium Academy. He got second place during last year's Millennium Sports Festival. There were so many things she wanted to ask him, but chose not to since it would be impolite. Well, it's definitely you, Kyoka said. Rikido's room was last, finishing off the boys' side of the building. His room was sort of normal looking, save for all the cooking utensils and microwave. Oh hey, the cake I was making is done, Rikido said as he pulled a cake out of the microwave. You made a cake? Nito asked. My quirk requires sugar, so I learned to cook so I could make my own sweets, Rikido replied. You'll be surprised how much I saved making this stuff myself. Anyone want to try some? The girls immediately said yes, each getting a slice of the cake he had made. Is this allowed? Denki asked. He's bribing the girls with cake. And Koji bribed us with a fluffy bunny, Toru retorted. Also, this is a nice cake, she said. The sentiment being shared by the other girls. Thank you, my parents run a bakery and I help out from time to time, Rikido said. Hanta sighed. Well, looks like we've lost this one. Now, it was the girls' turn to show off their rooms. Starting off with Dash. Boom! May's room. What the hell was that? Hanta asked as Inasa used his quirk to blow the smoke away. Oh, that? May said with a smile. Must have left the soldering iron on, she said as she walked into her room, which looked more like a workshop than a bedroom. At least she had a bed. How does a soldering iron cause this? Achiko asked, looking rather confused. Well, it was a homemade soldering iron, May replied with a smile. Yeah, I've taken the room next to mine as a storeroom for my babies. Most of the class was now very worried by this, especially Tsuyu, because her room was on the same floor as hers. I don't feel safe on this floor anymore, Ribbit. You don't feel safe? Achiko exclaimed. My room is right above hers, and Izumi's is right next to mine. Well, the building is reinforced, Choka remarked, so her explosions shouldn't do much damage. Hopefully. Tsuyu's room was next, and it had a green and frog theme to it, with green walls, bedding, and several frog theme items and dash. Why do you have a collection of 40k genestials? Denki asked, looking at the shelf full of green genestials. I have hobbies that aren't frog-related, Ribbit, Tsuyu replied. Just because I have a frog quirk doesn't mean I'm limited to liking things that are frog-related. She is correct. Tenya said, chopping his arm. We are all free to enjoy whatever we like. My quirk, for instance, is related to car engines, but I also quite like playing the saxophone. Huh, didn't see that coming, Himiko remarked. Also why nids? Guest, Tsuyu replied, holding her 4 hands like they had claws on them. Kik. Achiko's room was next, and whilst it was well furnished, everything looked cheap. I don't have much money, so my room's not as fancy as everyone else's. I think it's nice, Izumi said as she looked around. Not all of us have the funds to make our rooms look impressive. But this does look homey. Achiko smiled, glad that Izumi liked her room, even if it wasn't as impressive as everyone else's. Hey, what's this? Taru asked, pointing at what looked like a projector on the bedside table. Oh, that, Achiko said before she closed the door and turned the lights off. Watch, she said before she walked over to the projector and turned it on. Seconds later, the middle of the darkened room lit up with a large purplish-black cloud full of white dots. It took them a few moments to realize the white dots were stars. That's a nebula, Momo remarked as they gazed upon the 3D projection. The Abyss Cloud Nebula, Achiko explained, located on the other side of our galaxy. It's one of the first nebulae I saw with my own eyes. My father actually named me after one of the stars there. Achiko Titan B793, a Class F star, she said, pointing at one of the stars that made up the nebula. Ah, a bright name born from such a dark abyss, Fumikage remarked as he gazed upon the image of the dark nebula. He didn't say it out loud, but he thought the nebula had a dark beauty to it. Achiko smiled and allowed the others to look at the projection for a few more moments before she turned the projector off and turned the lights back on. I'm glad you all like it. My father got it for me on my 3rd birthday, she said with a frown. So, Izumi's room is next. Yeah, Izumi said nervously. My room. Moments later. That is a lot of All Might merch, Ijiro remarked as they had a look around Izumi's room. I know you said you were a big fan of All Might, but isn't this a little too much? I like it, Yui said, surprising everyone by saying something other than MM. Ah. She speaks. Nina said with mock surprise. Why am I not surprised that you have the joint poster of All Might and Blitz? Denki remarked as he pointed at the poster in question. When did those two team up? Inesa asked. 7 years ago, Izumi replied, when Dr. Necro and his army of Nazi zombies tried to take over Germany and resurrect Hitler. No, I am not making that up, she explained. All Might and Midnight, plus a few other pro-heroes from across the world, were called in to help deal with him. All Might to deal with the abominations, and Midnight because the gas produced by her quirk was able to kill Necro's zombies. Kill? Several students exclaimed. But those people, Tenya said, horrified that one of their teachers used her quirk to kill. Were already dead, Izumi said with a frown. Dr. Necro's quirk allowed him to reanimate the dead as zombies under his control, but only the dead. They were no more than puppets under his control. Believe me, killing them was a mercy. Hero sadly can't save everyone, Durandal added. Sometimes, all you can do is try and save as many as you can and reassure those you can't. Everyone lowered their heads. Durandal was right, there would be times when they won't be able to save everyone. There will always be people who need saving but can't be saved, either by circumstances outside of their control or there just aren't enough people around to reach them in time. They can't save everyone. But they could still save as many as they could. I understand, Tenya said with a slight bow. Some people just can't be saved. It's terrible, yes, but we can learn from such incidents to better ourselves. Rib bit. Toru's room was next and it was rather girly, which lightened the mood a bit. Not gonna lie, kind of thought you would have a more invisible theme for your room, Himiko said. Hey! I like this stuff. Toru said, waving her arms around. Yeah, girl power. Mina said loudly, one arm raised into the air. Girl power, Izumi added nervously. Yeah, that's the spirit. Mina said loudly. Izumi sighed. What had she gotten into? Kyoko was reluctant to allow everyone to have a look at her room, but with some convincing, she let them inside. They weren't surprised by the number of musical instruments there, as well as the other music-themed things in there. This is Kyoko said, about to say embarrassing before Denki said, oh hey, deep dope. I listen to their music all the time. Well, not all the time, just once in a while. Kyoko's eyes shot wide open as she turned to look at him. You listen to my parents' music. Denki's eyes shot wide open. Wait, what? Your parents are deep dope? Kyoko nodded her head. Yeah, but they stopped making music after they had me and now run a music production company. Yes, fellow music lovers unite. Durandal said. Wait, Durandal. You like music? May said, looking surprised. Well, he is an alpha-level intelligence. Izumi replied. He does have his own likes and dislikes. Music is one of them. Mainly concept album, she said before Durandal played the opening bars of The Eve of the War from Jeff Wayne's musical version of The War of the Worlds. Who knew he had good taste in music, Hitoshi remarked. My tastes are the same as my creators, unfortunately, Durandal thought, refusing to use the man's name. Momo's room was a very fancy room with a nice, decent-sized bed. This is rather fancy, Hanta remarked, like the bed too. Why thank you, Momo said with a smile. It's not as big as I wanted it to be, but the room wasn't large enough for the bed I wanted. Also, Kana told me to get a smaller bed. How big was the one you wanted? Nito asked. Well, it would have taken up most of the room, Momo replied. Everyone looked at her in shock, not expecting a bed to even be that big. She lives in a world we can scarcely believe in, Kyoko remarked. Yui's room was next, and it was a lot like Izumi's room, full of posters and statues of heroes. The one difference is that it wasn't for All Might, but fictional pre-Quirk heroes such as Ultraman, Super Sentai, and several other tokusatsu and Sentai heroes. Hey, another hero fan, Ijiro said, but I don't recognize any of these people. They're all fictional, pre-Quirk heroes, Durandal said. Back then the idea of people having powers only existed in fiction, not reality. Yui said with a nod. I like it, Hitoshi remarked, not noticing the slight blush on Yui's face when he said it. Reminds us that the idea of a hero existed long before quirks did, he said whilst Yui nodded frantically, still blushing. Sadly for the quiet girl, Mina did notice it and smirked. Looks like someone already has a crush. Mina's room was next and it was pink, oh so very pink. That is a lot of pink, Inasa remarked. A lot more than Toru's room, Denki said before an invisible hand bopped him on the head. Hey! Toru said, waving her arms around. I'm a girl, I like girly things. Plus it keeps to the pink theme she's got going. You're sure about that? Durandal asked, pointing at a xenomorph plush. This isn't pink. I like the Alien series as well, Mina said, it just scares so good. Also my blood is acidic. So I recommend Himiko doesn't drink it. Good to know, Himiko said with a smile. Himiko's room was last and it was red, very red. There were also a few vampire books. It's just like my room, just red, Mina remarked. Hitoshi sighed. You just brought everything from your room here, didn't you? He asked. Himiko smiled. Well, why wouldn't I? No way I was leaving anything of mine in the presence of that pervert, she said before she shuddered. Fair enough, Hitoshi said. Seriously, who is this pervert and how can we avoid him? Achiko asked, because one is enough. Issei Hyoto, one of our fellow foster kids, Himiko said with a frown, and if you ever meet him, wear leather, real leather. Not the faux stuff. You'll thank me later. All the girls immediately nodded. It didn't take someone as smart as Izumi to realize what the guy's quirk was and why they would need to wear leather around him. After all, leather was just dried skin. Note, acquire leather clothing ASAP, Durandal remarked. Himiko shuddered as an image of all the girls and all but two of the guys in their dorm. Hitoshi was like a brother to her, but Minoru could go die in a blender. Wearing revealing leather outfits flashed through her mind. Fuck, I must be hornier than I thought if I want to see everyone in leather. Everyone, including Minoru, who finally managed to escape his room, regrouped downstairs to discuss the winner. To no one's surprise, Rikito got first place, followed by Koji's room. Momo even made a little silver medal for Koji's pet rabbit. Inesa then decided to order pizza for everyone, which was something that had been allowed as long as it was before 10 p.m., from a reputable restaurant, inform one of the teachers about it, and they send someone to the UA gate to collect it. Overall, a fun way to round off the first day at school. Meanwhile, somewhere in Greece, Grigoris Sideralis let out a content sigh as he laid back on the sun lounge. Last week had been quite productive for him, so he deserved a nice long break. Consisting of a nice relaxing stay at a nice house with a pool with a sexy woman with a tight-fitting and revealing bikini to swim in it. Grigoris was a tall, attractive and well-built man with an athletic body, and abs you could grate cheese on. He had short brown hair and milky blue eyes. Clad only in tight-fitting black swimming trunks. A splash to the side told him that the sexy woman he was with was leaving the pool. At first glance, the woman could be described as a green-skinned Amazonian space babe, owing to her height, green skin, and Amazonian body. Her hair was long and blue, her eyes were as blue as diamonds and had a very curvy and voluptuous body. He smiled, approving of the very revealing white bikini she was wearing, as well as the seductive sway her hips moved as she walked. Enjoying yourself, Hilala? Grigoris asked as the woman walked over. Indeed we are, Hilala replied, her accent utterly unknown to the man. It's not often we get a chance to relax like this, she said as she lay next to him on the sun lounge and put her arms around him. Tall as Grigoris may be, even he was dwarfed by Hilala. His head only reached the woman's large bust. Well, might as well make the most of it, Grigoris said as put an arm around her, her wet body pressing against his bare chest. We've only got a few days here after all. That we do, Hilala cooed as she leaned forwards to kiss him, only for a loud pop, followed by the sound of glass breaking stopped them. Oops, sorry about that, a voice that was all too familiar to them both said. Must have been a bit too much pressure in the bottle. Both of them froze. That voice, a voice they haven't heard in over 11 years. A voice of a man they both thought was dead. They both got up and looked towards the house, finding a man with their back towards them pouring 3 glasses of what Grigoris knew as a very, very expensive bottle of champagne. He was bald and wearing shorts, a shirt and sandals. The two cautiously approached the house and entered it, slowly creeping up on the man. But they didn't make it far before the man turned around to face them. Grigoris had to hold back a gasp, as the man's eyes had been replaced with camera lenses. Argonaut. The man said with a smile, long time no see, old friend. How have you been, buddy? That's not possible, Grigoris said, shocked by the sight of his old and supposed to be dead boss standing before him. Paxton? In the flesh. Paxton replied, apologies about the eyes, but test subject Nizu removed them when he escaped. How? How are you alive? Grigoris asked, still in shock. They all said you died aboard the Evangelion carrier. Ah yes, the Evangelion carrier, Paxton said as he walked over to them, holding 2 glasses. Such a shame the US Navy found it. I was very fond of that ship. But, this is why you always have a backup, he said before he passed Grigoris one of the 2 glasses. Grigoris looked down at the glass and cautiously took it, still struggling to believe that this man was Paxton. Paxton smiled before turning towards Hilala. Hilala, nice to see you as well. I'm guessing the mess in the master bedroom was all you're doing? He asked, pointing towards one of the bedrooms. Oh, that Hilala replied, yes well, we needed a quick snack and he surfaced. Greece's number 9 hero, a snack, Paxton said, passing her the other glass. I'm impressed you were able to off the guy, but do you really need the heat killing him would bring? Grigory's and Hilala shared an awkward look. Well, it was either him or us, Grigory said. Besides, no one should know about it for at least a few more days. And when they do, there won't be anything tracing it back to us. Not even a body. Paxton smiled. You see, this is why I like you, he said before he walked back over to the table and picked up the third glass. You're smart, you plan ahead. You don't just jump into something blind, he said as he walked back over. I suppose you know what my return means. Round 2 baby. Paxton's back in the game and ready to make the entire world shudder with fear. And I haven't been sitting on my arse doing nothing. Oh no. I've been busy these past 11 years. Oh, so very busy. I've been upgrading and updating my robots, improving my technology, recruiting new people, and making connections. Now, all that's left to do is recruit what's left of the old gang. Believe me, when I say, round 2 is going to be a lot of fun. So, what do you say? You want in? Grigory smiled. Oh God, did he smile. There was no doubt about it, this was Paxton. He didn't know how the man survived, and he didn't care. Serving under Paxton led to the most fun he had ever had, and round 2 sounded like it was going to be even better. He'd be a fool to pass this up. Count me the fuck in, sir, Grigory said with a smile. Us too, Hilala said with a seductive smile. We very much want to see just how much you've improved over the past 10 years. Besides, we have a few new ideas for a new all-might buster. Paxton smiled. Well then. Let's have some fun, he said as the three clinked their glasses. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 12. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.